Do you need an LLC in order to start investing in real estate? If you keep watching, this is exactly the question that I'm going to be answering for you today. If you are a beginning real estate investor, or if you are thinking about going into real estate investing, you probably have a lot of questions coming to mind. I know when I first got started 2 years ago, there was so many things that I had to study. From learning the terminology to studying the investing strategies that were already out there, I had to do a lot, and honestly, sometimes it got a little bit confusing. One of the questions that came to mind was, is an LLC needed in order to start investing in real estate? Now, if you're short on time, I'll give you the short answer that I found myself a long time ago, and no, an LLC is not required. However, if you want to stick around for the rest of this video, I am going to dive in deeper on why you don't need an LLC to start investing in real estate, but also why some people recommend that you do have one. Before we get started into all of that though, if you could do me a huge favor, smash that like button down below until it turns blue, because it definitely helps my channel grow and reach out to other people who may need this information as well. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that way you never miss a video when I post it. On this platform, I talk about real estate investing, finances, and everything between. So after you watch this video, make sure you hop over to my main page as well and find something else that you may take an interest in. One more thing that needs to be said before we start into this video is that I am not giving you advice in any type of way. I'm not a licensed professional to give you advice. I'm just a beginning real estate investor sharing everything that I've learned with you in the hopes that it could speed up a little bit of what you need to know by yourself. If you like my advice, make sure you stick around for more advice that I'm getting. But if you're looking for any professional help, make sure you go talk to a pro who's definitely licensed. All right, we got all of that stuff out of the way. So now we can go ahead and dive into what an LLC is. Then I'm going to give you the pros and cons of having an LLC. And lastly, for the last part of this video, I'm going to share why I personally chose to go without one. All right, so starting off, if you Google the definition of what an LLC is, you'll probably find a definition saying that an LLC stands for Limited Liability Company, and it is one of the type of legal entities that can be formed to own and operate a business. LLCs are popular because they can provide the same limited liability as a corporation, but they are easier and cheaper to form and run. All right, so there you have it. That is the official definition of an LLC. It's basically a business that you can create and run by yourself. But let's go ahead and take a look at the pros of having an LLC and also the cons of having an LLC as a real estate investor. Okay, so the very first thing that an LLC is going to provide you as far as pros is my favorite: asset protection. Now, if you don't know what asset protection is, no problems. I'm about to dive into it right now. Let's imagine that you get a rental property and then you put a tenant inside of your rental property, and the tenant slips and falls and hurts himself, and now they are suing you for a lot of money in medical bills. Let's assume that the tenant wins, and for some reason your insurance doesn't cover the full amount, so now you are on the hook for $400,000, but you don't have $400,000. So now the tenant is not only able to come after your rental property, but they may be able to come after your bank account, your cars, your wages, and everything else in your name. They may be able to come after you personally. And this problem is exactly why LLCs exist in the first place. This is where we get the limited liability coming into play. You see, an LLC grants you limited liability. So now let's imagine that instead of being owned by you, your rental property was owned by your LLC, and the tenant sues your LLC. Well, if you lose and you have to come up with money, you may lose that rental property, but the tenant won't be able to come after your own house, your own car, your own wages, or anything like that. They can only go through the LLC. Now, there are ways to pierce the protections of an LLC, but that's not for this video. That's for a later video down the road. All you need to know now is that an LLC grants you asset protection, meaning that if something bad happens, you won't be held personally liable financially for the things that occur. Another benefit that you're going to receive by having an LLC is how taxation is done. Ordinarily, an LLC provides a business with tax-through passation. This means that any profits or losses that's incurred by the business passes through the business and onto you, the owner, so that way you can put it on your personal tax returns. Personal tax returns and these profits are taxed at the owner's personal tax rates. Now, at this point, if you're thinking, so what? Just know that for regular businesses, taxation is a huge hassle that costs a lot more money. So having this ability to pass through your taxes in an LLC can be a huge heaven sent. Now, you lose this ability as you go on to grow your LLC into multiple members and things of that nature. However, if it's just you running this business, then that is definitely an option that you can take available for. And since real estate investors most times work by themselves, this is something that a lot of people take advantage of as well. The last benefit that I'm going to mention about LLCs is that they are very flexible when it comes to ownership, management, and also taxation. While many LLCs are owned only by one member, there is no hard and fast rules to the amount of members that your LLC can have. That means if you want to own and run things by yourself, or if you want to include more people, let's say your cousin, your brother, your mom's friend, or whoever with your LLC and have them as members, you can do that as well. Also, LLCs can choose how they want to be taxed. Usually, you'll see them being taxed as sole proprietorships or partnerships. But multi-member LLCs have the ability to be taxed like a corporation if they choose to do so. Lastly, the flexibility that you're given by having an LLC makes it really good at adapting to multiple different situations or environments, which is perfect for real estate investors because no two investors are going to have or run their business exactly the same way. And we need a tool that's going to be able to flex and morph based on what we need from it. All right, there you have it. Those are 3 pros that I can think of immediately when it comes to having an LLC. Now, those may sound really good, and at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, Javon, if those are the pros, then why did you pass up on having an LLC when you first started investing in real estate? And my answer to this is, personally, me as a beginner, I didn't find an LLC to be worth it financially. You see, one of the biggest cons that an LLC can have is the price of an LLC. It costs money to set it up, to manage it, to run it, to keep it up yearly. All of those things cost money. So let's imagine that I get a real estate investment property and that property cash flows me, let's say $2,000 a year. But managing my LLC, starting it up and keeping it afloat cost me $3,000 that year. That means instead of making $2,000 profit, I would be losing $1,000. I personally didn't think it was worth that for me, just getting started out. And a lot of new investors are pretty much in the same boat as I am. You don't have so much capital to make having an LLC worth it, but that's just my opinion. So the con of having an LLC can be the pricing. That more so matters as you're a beginner, because as you go and grow and get more properties under your belt, you're going to make more money, and that's definitely going to incentivize you to get an LLC later on, especially as you start to get more assets under your belt, because at the end of the day, you do want to protect those assets. I know for me personally, the cost of starting an LLC, like I said, was a major deterrent, but also that wasn't the only thing. You see, when you have an LLC and you're trying to get loans through the LLC, I've heard from other investors that that can be really difficult as well. You see, right now, if I wanted to house hack or something like that, one method that I show on this channel, if I wanted to house hack and I wanted to acquire a building through my LLC, instead of putting down the regular 3 to 5% I usually could, I'd have to put down 20 to 25%. That is a huge jump on the capital needed, and I know that sometimes it can be harder to get loans through an LLC as well, and it's easier to go through yourself. Now, if you already know a little bit about real estate investing, you may be thinking that you can get a personal loan through your name and then later on transfer over the deed or the title to your LLC. And that is definitely possible, but you also risk the event of a due on sale clause being triggered by your lender. And what does that mean? That's basically the lender saying, hey, we noticed that the title or the deed has been transferred over to another party, so the full amount that you have left on this mortgage is going to have to be paid today. Some people will tell you that that rarely happens. Other people will tell you that that's a danger. I know for myself, it's something that I want to avoid now while my capital is very low. But as I gain more capital, maybe it's something I will be more comfortable with performing later on. Who knows? But as a beginner, it's important that you know these things. Now, we are close to the end of this video, and you're probably wondering, okay, Javon, an LLC provides you protection, and if I don't have an LLC, what protection do I have? Do I have no protection? And my answer to that is absolutely not. Even without an LLC, you can give yourself some form of protection. The first thing that you'll want to do in order to protect yourself is make sure the buildings that you're investing in, make sure they're good buildings. They are up to code and there's nothing that could possibly go wrong inside of them. Make sure that you're not being a slumlord. Like, honestly, make sure your buildings are okay, and that's going to be your first line of protection. Your second line of protection is going to be making sure you pick the right people to inhabit your buildings. If you pick a bad tenant, then that tenant can literally make your life miserable. So there are proper tenant screening techniques that you can apply that make sure you get the right person in the building that you created. And if you get the right person in the right environment, I'm pretty sure from there, things are going to go smoothly. After you do that, your next form of protection is to make sure you get a good property manager in place, or you become a good property manager yourself. Because even when the building is up to shape, you want to make sure that it stays up to shape. Things break in houses all the time. Sometimes the microwave goes bad. Sometimes the trees grow under the pavement and lifts up the roofs, or sometimes trees grows under the pavement or sidewalk and lift up some chunks, making it trip it. Sometimes trees grows under the pavement and lifts up the concrete, creating tripping hazards. And like I said, all types of things go wrong. So if you're managing the property properly, or if you have a property manager in there, make sure they are doing their job, or you're doing your job, and that you're taking care of the building that you placed your tenant in. Afterwards, you also have insurance. You don't want to skip on insurance to save a couple of dollars a year. I promise you, if the better insurance policy is going to cost you an extra $100, $200, it is going to be well worth it later on. And it may be hard to think long term, but you're an investor now. You got to think long term. And also, having an umbrella policy might make things even better for you. It's something that I definitely recommend to those who don't have LLCs, just because we don't have the protection that it provides us. So we need to protect ourselves in as many ways as possible. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. Now you know what an LLC is. It's basically a business that you run. You know the 3 pros that I think comes associated with it, the huge con against it for beginners, which is the cost. And now you also know ways in how to protect yourself even without an LLC. If you gain any value from this video, like I said before, hit that like button down below so that way other people can learn and grow from it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and also check out some of my other videos. I have a ton of content that I'm pushing out. I'm really excited to share the information that I gained from being a beginning investor with you, and I'm just trying to learn and grow with you, and hopefully we can go to the top. That's all I have for you today, so I'm going to leave you with a peace, love, and happiness.